You're listening to America First with Dr. G.
Welcome back, dear friends. Less than 24 hours away, the second impeachment of Donald John Trump as a private citizen. The first time ever that has occurred in the United States. A travesty, truly. One that we know will lead nowhere for the lack of votes, but is clearly just an attempt to make sure that his political future is at a dead end. But in my estimation, he will be more influential and powerful than ever. Our last guest of the day, somebody I've been waiting a long time to get on the show, is none other than Professor Dr. Carol Swain. She is a professor of law at Vanderbilt University, formerly a tenured associate professor at Princeton University's Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs. Most importantly, she runs WeThePeopleNews.com, BeThePeopleNews.com, and also her podcast, Conversations with Carol Swain. Professor Swain, welcome to America First.
Well, thank you so much. And I am a former Vanderbilt professor. I took early tenure a few years ago.
Thank you. My assistant shall be taken out and shot after the show, but that's not for you to worry about, but thank you. But the most important thing is BeThePeopleNews.com. We'll talk about why you created that momentarily. But first things, as a political scientist, as somebody who looks at the body politic for a living, would you give us your estimation of the first 3 weeks of our new administration in terms of the vaunted goals from President Biden's inauguration speech of harmony and of bringing us back together in some form of unity? What are you seeing, Professor Swain?
Well, first of all, it seems to me that the Biden administration and the political left, that they are terrified of the Trump the mega movement. And I believe that the rush to get out so many executive orders quickly is because they see themselves, I believe, it is a house of cards. There's more information coming out about what took place in the states. And so they have an uncertain future. And I believe that because of that, they're doing everything in their power to discredit President Trump. And when you look at what they're actually doing, what they're doing is an injury to the American people when it comes to the Constitution, when it comes to free speech, when it comes to clean elections. It's not Donald J. Trump that's being injured. It's the American people who are being injured.
This is a fascinating analysis because most people, I think, who follow these events, who look at the photographs of the president sitting there with literally piles, dozens of executive orders on the Resolute desk and him signing them one after another, that this is a sign of confidence, of arrogance, that they have a plan and they're executing this plan with gusto. But you, Professor Swain, say it's the opposite.
Yes, because what he is doing is unconstitutional. You cannot legislate, with your pen with those executive orders. And so many of the things that he is signing will not withstand constitutional scrutiny. And so there will be court cases, just like the barrage of court cases that President Trump faced. And he actually was following the law. And so the Supreme Court ruled in his favor in most of those cases. I don't believe the same will be true for Joe Biden. And I believe that he has no idea what he is signing, that part of what he's doing is appeasing the groups that supported him.
So you have confidence, Professor, that the courts will gainsay this flurry of executive action?
Only if the conservative justices and the American people press them. But we know that under our Constitution, we have separation of powers, and the executive branch is not supposed to step into the area and legislate in the way that Joe Biden is trying to do with all of those executive orders.
We will continue with Professor Swain in the meantime. She is the author of Abduction, How Liberalism Steals the Hearts and Minds of Our Children, as well as her own podcast, Conversations with Carol Swain. Go to bethepeople.com. We will be back with the good professor. In the meantime, follow her at Carol Swain on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. This is America First on the Salem Radio Network, live streaming on YouTube, terrestrially to hundreds of radio stations across the nation, also available on Facebook, on Instagram, and don't forget our backup, our First Amendment backup, rumble.com/SebGorka. That's SEBGORKA. Coming to you from the ReliefFactor.com. Sadly, we're living under a Biden-Harris administration. What does it mean for your finances? More debt? More regulation, more money printing, less growth, and higher taxes. The importance of owning physical gold and silver has never been greater. Call the veteran-owned Midas Gold Group today to get their guide to owning bullion and coins. Call 480-360-3000 or go to MidasGoldGroup.com.
Making sense out of today's news, here's Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Have you made time? Have you blocked out an hour and a half on your calendar? Do it! You've got to watch Mike Lindell's movie. Go to michaeljlindell.com. It's about the last election. You need to see it. michaeljlindell.com. In the meantime, support him because he's been fighting for President Trump. He's been supporting the 45th president. You can help him out and support us by going to his webpage and ordering something from mypillow.com. Because you're listening to this show, because you're a friend of this show, you will get 60% off if you use my name. He's got almost 100 products from the incredible pillow he sold 51 million of. I use them. My whole team uses them. Donald Trump, the former president, uses them. Get them for 60% off if you use my name. mypillow.com, promo code GORKA, or call 800-829-8468. That's 800-829-8468, mypillow.com. But you've got to use promo code GORKA. We are back with none other than Dr. Professor Carol Swain, formerly of Vanderbilt University in Princeton. Now you can follow her at bethepeoplenews.com, including her Conversations with Carol Swain podcast. Professor, how significant was it that within hours of taking the oath of office, Joe Biden went to the Oval, sat down at the Resolute desk, and destroyed, nixed, memory hold the 1776 Presidential Commission that President Trump had created just 3 weeks previously? What is that a sign of?
It's a sign that he fears truth and he is trying to appease the radical left. And I saw it as an overture to Black Lives Matter and also the 1619 Project that was put out by the New York Times that was heavily steeped in critical race theory. And it has a totally different founding story than what we advanced in our 1776 report. And I have to tell you that our report was written in 4 weeks because we knew that there was a chance that we would be abolished by executive order. I did not think that eliminating our commission would be such a priority of the president, given all the problems affecting our nation.
So, as a former commissioner of the 1776 Presidential Commission, I have to ask you, as somebody who's steeped in the theory and the academe of all these questions, what is it going to take when you have, according to the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, 72% of millennials in America, Professor, would prefer to live in a socialist or communist America. Can that ever be undone? How long will it take? And where do we even start?
Well, we start by acknowledging the fact that we're no longer educating our young people and that the political left has started indoctrinating them in middle school. And it doesn't matter whether they're going to a private Christian school or if they're going to a public school. If they're not being homeschooled or closely watched in their private schools, they are being indoctrinated. And I think that we have lost sight of the fact that our children are being turned against us systematically. It was part of a plan. It started at the universities, and now it's down to K-12.
So what actions could the average taxpayer, the parent, take if this is something that, as has been demonstrated, is now embedded not just in the colleges of education, the teacher colleges, not just in the faculties, the tenured faculty positions, but also in the high schools? What can the mere mortals who have the children who go to the schools do?
Well, first of all, you asked me about socialism, and I started talking about diversity, but the diversity, equity, inclusion industry is part of the cultural Marxism that's reached down to K-12 schools, and as they indoctrinate them with that, they also push the socialist agenda. And so I think that parents and churches and pastors and people that care about America, they themselves need to make sure they understand critical theory and understand that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not the same as affirmative action that America accepted in the 1960s and 1970s. This has a different set of goals, and ultimately it's about disrupting American society as we know it.
Do you have confidence that this can be undone, or are you pessimistic at the depth of the inculcation of critical theory amongst our educational establishments?
I think it can be undone if people become more aware of what it actually is. And it does involve discrimination against whites, discrimination against Asians, which is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause and the Civil Rights laws. And I think if more people stand up and demand protection of their rights, that we get responsiveness, we get more people educated. And I think that racial and ethnic minorities like me, we have a responsibility to take a leadership role, because I find many white people have just given up, that they have allowed themselves to be silenced and browbeaten, and they're not speaking up for their constitutional rights. And sadly, they allow their children to be bullied and shamed because of the color of their skin.
What is your fight in the last minute we have with you, Professor Carol Swain? Follow her at Carol Swain on Twitter and also at bethepeoplenews.com. What is your message to those who haven't yet been intimidated? Our parents see something that is clearly ideological, is racist in what their children are learning, but haven't spoken out yet.
Well, I think that they have a lot of like-minded parents of all races and ethnicities. And so what they should do through the PTA or through a parents association, they should form a group, because there's always more power in numbers. If it's one person, then you'll be isolated, you'll be attacked. But if it's a group of people, if you're paying for that private education, even in the public schools, they have to follow the law. And so I think that the most important thing is to educate yourself, organize, and then stand up and speak out. Your child is dependent on you.
Educate yourself, organize yourselves, and stand up for the truth. And it all starts with understanding one thing: you are not alone. Follow this lady at bethepeoplenews.com. Conversations with Carol Swain. Professor Swain, thank you for joining us here on America First. I'm Sebastian Gorka, former strategist to President Trump. This is America First from the ReliefFactor.com studios.